This week on the Autocar Show, we drive back in time with the Mercedes-Benz Classic Car Rally. We also get insights of the used car industry over conversations with the leaders in Brobot Dialogues, brought to you by Reliance General Insurance. And we also talk safety in a series brought to you by Michelin.
Welcome to the 7th edition of the Mercedes-Benz Classic Car Rally. Yes, it's that time of the year again when the city of Mumbai wakes up to the sight of these glorious classic and vintage Mercedes-Benzes, perhaps the finest in the country and in the world. However, this year, it's not just a celebration of classic cars, but of the resilience of the citizens of Mumbai and especially its frontline COVID warriors. And what better way to celebrate this resilience than with a bunch of gorgeous classic cars like these, which have stood the test of time. Despite this being the 7th edition of the MBCCR, it's a sight we can never grow old of. Just look at all these impeccable classics with their gleaming three-pointed stars, will you? Alright, so these aren't just vintage and classic Mercedes, but some truly rare and special ones. The oldest car at the show, for instance, is industrialist Vivek Goenka's 1929 Nurburg, a stunning example of which very few exist in the whole world. In fact, why don't we hear about it from the man himself?
I think my pride in the show is my 1929 Nurburg. It's one of the first 8-cylinder production cars that Mercedes ever built. And it's the first of the Nurburg series in 1929. It's probably one of the 2 or 3 survivors in the world.
This edition of the Mercedes-Benz Classic Car Rally saw a shade under 50 participants, which saw this prestigious event feature every classic generation of the E-Class, SL Class and S Class, making it a truly special gathering unlike any other. Don't believe us? Maybe what the owners of these prize machines had to say will convince you.
Events like this always help. It brings enthusiasts out from across the country. And you get a platform to showcase your cars.
It represents the past of Mercedes-Benz, the history of Mercedes-Benz. We have the first Mercedes-Benz produced up to the latest one, so almost 100 plus years.
My father used to take me to kindergarten when I was young in this car, and then when I was 18, it was the first car that was given to me as well. And I've sort of grown up with it. I've got many memories with it, and it's something that will remain a family heirloom.
This is the first time that I am participating. I've been an owner of this car since more than 20 years now. This is the first S-Class made by Mercedes-Benz. It's a 1949 170S. This was gifted by the Nizam of Hyderabad to Jawaharlal Nehru on becoming the first Prime Minister of the country. So even the RC book of this car has the Nizam's name as the first owner, and then it has the PMO, Prime Minister's Office. So it's got a huge legacy.
But, of course, the year 2020 will be remembered as a year in which humanity was put to an extreme test thanks to the COVID-19 pandemic. And celebrations of the sort we are having would have been unimaginable had it not been for a determined few who put their lives on the line, resiliently, to keep life going strong. The Mercedes-Benz Classic Car Rally celebrated this very resilience of our COVID-19 frontline warriors, who were felicitated at the event by none other than the Honourable Home Minister of Maharashtra, Anil Deshmukh.
It is an excellent rally. I congratulate the Autocar for organizing this classic car rally in association with the Mercedes, and I think this is very prestigious rally of the country.
While celebrating resilience was the flavor of the day, celebrating these works of art certainly wasn't left behind, and summarizing this most aptly were the individuals who make it all happen year after year.
It's a very special moment for us because, and this year being so tough, as you rightly mentioned, a rally of resilience in also restoring these beauties, because I heard many of them bought cars, restored them, they were, and we had much more entries than what we could accommodate. So that just shows, it's just growing in stature year on year. They generally say that don't drive a car only looking at the rear view mirror, but when it comes to classics, I think we have to look at the rear, we have to see where we came from, and if you look at the EQC, this is the future for sure. But this also is inspired from our genes and from the brand itself. So I think it's our responsibility to take care of these cars, and we'll continue to do so. This is already an international event because this gets featured also in our pages back in the MB Classic Center and others, but I think this will grow only in stature, and Bombay or Mumbai, as well as the Classic Car Rally and Autocar, I think we have a long way to go with this, and we are quite happy to be part of this, and also thanks to Persis actually for putting up this show, well curated, and Autocar team. So really kudos to the entire organization.
So this is the 7th edition of the Mercedes-Benz Classic Car Rally. It's happening at an absolutely unprecedented time. But what we're trying to show at this edition is that we're talking about humanity's resilience. And what better way to talk about resilience than to talk about classic cars, because they have really stood the test of time.
So that's it from the 7th edition of the Mercedes-Benz Classic Car Rally. A truly remarkable day, and well, you've heard it from the people who keep the passion for the Mercedes-Benz brand truly alive. I think there is just no better way of celebrating resilience, and especially the resilience of cars like these. But if only I could find the keys to this car and make off with it.
Up next, we get insights of the used car industry over conversation with the leaders in Brobot Dialogues, brought to you by Reliance General Insurance. And we also talk safety in a series brought to you by Michelin.
Hello and welcome to Brobot Dialogues, a series of panel discussions on various sectors of the auto industry. And today we'll be talking about the used car market. And to discuss this and more, we have a strong panel of leaders. From the OEM side, we have Shashank Srivastav, the Executive Director of Marketing and Sales of Maruti Suzuki. We've got Ashish Gupta, the Brand Director of Volkswagen India. And from the organized used car side, we have Ashutosh Pandey, Managing Director of Mahindra First Choice Wheels. And from the insurance side, Shrish Mahuli, who's the Head of Agency and Retail Broking. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. And I want to kick off with opening remarks from all of you with a broad question. Is the used car market coming of age? And is there any sign of perhaps an increase in demand for used cars compared to new cars? I'd like to kick with maybe Ashutosh. I mean, this is absolutely your core sector. So, your remarks, Ashutosh.
Yeah, so I think the short answer to what you said, is it coming of age? Certainly it's coming of age. The demand has been pretty strong the entire year. Demand actually has been strong for the past few years. There has been a steady movement from unorganized to organized space. I think contrary to what's happened in the broader auto industry, I think this part of the industry has gotten a fillip during the pandemic, and we see far stronger demand than we have supply for. So today the industry is roughly about 1.5, 1.6 times the size of new car volumes. We expect it to grow to 2x. We expect some supply issues in the interim, but I think it gets sorted out when the demand comes in.
And Shashank, turning to you from Maruti Suzuki side, of course, you'll have a concentrated push in trying to making the used car space, with true value as, let's say, as, how do I say, organized as possible, for want of a better word. I mean, what is your trend you're looking at? Because clearly when demand comes back, it's, it starts at the lower end. People are looking at used cars.
On the question of used cars, I would agree with the previous panelist. Yes, we have seen a big jump in the inquiry levels for used cars. I think it's part of the overall trend that we observed post-pandemic, which is that people are moving away from the public transport and shared mobility, more towards personal mobility. And personal vehicles, therefore, seem to have gone up, and that's reflected also in the new car inquiry trends. But in case of used cars, the inquiry levels are showing a good growth of almost about 6 to 7%. However, the replacement buying has been coming down. So the replacement buying inquiry has actually come down. So it's reflected in lower exchanges, which means that the last year it was around 25-26% in the industry, has come down to 19%. And I would agree that the ratio, because remember, unlike new cars, we have just research data. So it's an approximate sample-based data. It's around 1.5 to 1.6 times the new car sales. In developed markets, it can go up just beyond 2 as well, as in US 2.1, 2.2. The used car sales last year the estimates are about 4.4 million. Because the new car sale was about 2.78 million, and I'm talking of passenger vehicles. So the ratio was about 1.6. It's the ratio seems to be similar. However, the new car sales are down, and they are expected to. We expect this year to close with about 2.65 or so, and the expected used car market would therefore be just under 4 million. That's our estimate.
Right. Ashish, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I would tend to agree with Shashank on the inquiry levels actually going up during the pandemic for the used cars. What I would like to add actually is the trend that we have seen in movement from two-wheelers to four-wheelers. I think that's something which has gone up dramatically, and that's something which we in the automobile industry, at least in the four-wheelers, do not consider as a ratio of how the conversions or how the used car market is moving. But I definitely see a lot of movement of people who want to upgrade from a two-wheeler. That pace has accelerated, especially with the pandemic, with people preferring a secure space to travel in.
Right. And Ashish, from your point of view, I mean, obviously, insurance is a big factor also in any car, new or used. But, obviously, the dynamics are very different in the used car sector. So just your perspective.
Yeah, sure. So, so if you look at, motor insurance is actually a bread and butter for, insurance industry. So motor insurance forms 35%, that's the size of the motor insurance in the insurance industry. Now within motor insurance, if we talk about private car is, contribution of private car is close to 45 to 50% in the motor insurance. Now within this, if we have to split between new car and used car, used car, as my co-panelists have already said, current ratio between new car to used car is 1 is to 1.5, 1.6. But as it is forecasted that the used car ratio, in developed countries is currently at 1 is to 3. And in India, as co-panelists have already discussed, because of COVID situation, what has happened, we can clearly see the shift in customer demand from two-wheeler to used car, or from no vehicle to used car. So probably this is the used car, purchase is accelerated, and we from an insurance standpoint, within the dominant motor insurance space, we clearly see that is becoming a giant pillar for us to focus on.
Right. And I just want to touch upon one important development that we've seen. It's still to be fleshed out, is the announcement of the scrappage policy, which clearly will have a huge impact. So I just wanted all your thoughts on it, Ashutosh. Since I'll start with you on this, and then just move to everyone, because clearly it's still voluntary right now. But going forward, the sense one gets is that older cars it's going to be, let's say, more and more difficult to, let's say, extend life cycles of cars, and what that impact will have on overall used car demand and prices.
So I think the first part is that don't forget that in addition to voluntary scrapping, if you don't go in for voluntary scrapping, there's an additional fitness test, etc., that's been brought in, right? So if you were to put that in perspective, it's certain that over a period of time, nothing will happen overnight, but over a period of time, I think certainly the older cars will come for scrapping. Now, what happens in the used car market is that cars above, say, 10 years age generally don't kind of get traded too much, right? They get traded in smaller and smaller towns, cities, and that kind of stuff. So the immediate impact on either used car sales or used car prices are likely to be fairly limited. Having said that, as older cars go off the park, I think the one which is far more cost efficient for the buyer is going to pick up.
Right. And Shashank, turning to you, I think you are I would imagine one manufacturer, this would have a fair amount of impact. I mean, you're 37 years old, so obviously a much older vehicle park compared to Ashish, who will come to later. So, your thoughts on the scrappage policy and just the overall impact on this? I mean, is it something that you would in a way welcome, because obviously it has an impact on new cars? It's voluntary right now.
So I feel, and I mentioned it earlier as well, that the assessment that there will be no change in the price of the used cars because of the scrappage policy is probably not correct to my mind. And we are, of course, still getting to know the contours of the policy. The final details are not known. So please, with that caveat only, I can comment, because really we don't know the final details. But as a principle of demand, I would expect that if the vehicles which are closer to that age, either 10 or 15 or whatever, when you have a pressure on selling it as scrap, those values will definitely collapse. And that we found in Delhi as well, when we had this NGT order of 10-year time period for certain category of vehicles, the prices nearer that collapse. But what happens to the demand, which is obviously continuing to go up? So demand will go up. New cars coming in will probably be limited. So I would expect the prices of the newer cars to go up. Because the vehicles which are closer to that age of scrapping will probably be actually scrap value, so the prices would come down. But that would push up the demand for the newer cars, which should actually increase the prices. So where will be that point of inflection will be dependent on the amount of incentives which are available for scrappage, or the disincentive which is available for scrappage. So I think that policy, once we know the final detail, we can actually determine that point of inflection where the newer cars will gain value even in used car market, and the older cars will actually start. So it will be an inverted U curve, or you can say a inverted V curve type of thing.
Right. That's a very good perspective, Shashank. Thanks for that. Ashish, looking at from your side, Volkswagen just a little over 10 years as a brand. So, frankly, you've got a much younger vehicle park. A lot of them not really due for a voluntary scrappage program. So, I mean, how does this affect you?
This will definitely play into increasing the residual value of the younger used cars to a greater extent. And I would just like to give you, put some figures on what Shashank said. During the last 1 year, we have clearly seen the residual values of cars aged between 3 to 5 years moving up by as much as 5% to 7%. So definitely that also again shows that there is a huge demand in that segment of used cars which is still unfulfilled. Yeah, and this demand will further go up, which is good from the point of view of OEMs, because it drives up your residual values or the selling price of a used car, and then the new car proposition also becomes much better. Yeah, so that's something which I'm looking at it from a maybe 4 to 5 years perspective of how the effects of this scrappage policy will start affecting the OEs.
Right. And Shish, from your point of view, clearly with the insurance, I mean, there are challenges with in the older the cars are, especially, let's say loan value, residual value vis-a-vis, what the insurance value also is. So do you see an opportunity as well with the scrappage policy?
Yeah, sure. So there are 2 points I mean, 2 points I would like to make in this regard. First point, definitely, the demand will go up, so definitely demand for used car will go up. Point number two is, what will happen is, because we, while writing used car, we normally don't write vehicles, beyond certain age. So what will start happening is that, or even if we write, we write at a loss, because the premium is not sufficient to take care of the old car, value. So now, since we start this with the scrappage policy, what will start happening is that, we will have a premium sufficiency, and that will allow us to take more risk in that segment. So I think, that way, it will definitely, from the bottom line perspective for insurance companies, it will definitely help, and from the demand perspective, there is a definite yes.
Right. Thanks, Shesh. And I think with that, I'll wrap up this session. We are close to the time allocated for it, but clearly, I think the used car segment very exciting. I think a lot of let's say the dynamics have definitely changed, and I think earning the trust of the customer in the used car space. I mean, clearly in a country where affordability is so important, I see no reason why the used car market shouldn't be even stronger. But a lot of opportunities. Thank you everyone for joining us, and wish you all the best for the year ahead, which I'm sure is going to be exciting and better for all of us. Thank you.
Coming up after the break, we talk safety in a series brought to you by Michelin.
Your safety, our priority. Committed to safer mobility for a better way forward. Brought to you by Michelin Tyres.
In our last episode, we spoke about how our tires play an important part in keeping us safe. Well, there are other safety features in cars that ensure that our wheels stay on the ground. Let's take a look.
We have all heard that term ABS, and since April 2019, it has become mandatory for cars in India to have this safety feature. So what does it really do? In emergency situations, people tend to panic brake. Without anti-lock braking system, it would cause the car to lock its wheels and continue to slide straight on or skid uncontrollably to a side. And if you were a good driver in earlier days, you would do what ABS does. That is, release and reapply brakes to prevent them from locking and being more effective. ABS system sense when the wheels are going to lock and release the brakes. Before reapplying them, doing this continuously till the car comes to a halt.
You may have experienced a judder on your brake pedal and some sound on certain cars when you brake hard. More often than not, that is your ABS at work keeping you safe. An extension of the ABS system is EBD. Let's take a look at how that works.
Now when you do brake hard, the weight of the car tends to shift across its wheels and more so to the front. The momentum of the wheel keeps it moving faster than the speed at which the wheels are rotating, resulting in loss of traction, and EBD comes in here, ensuring the correct amount of distribution of braking force across the wheels to bring it to a halt without loss of traction.
Remember, apart from all the safety features, it is critical to have a good set of tires to ensure that you come to a stop when you want to. So, there you have it. All the technical terms we throw around every day, now you know what they do and how they keep you safe.